Hey.
Good day.
Crikey.
We've got Bindi here and Robert, Steve and Terri's sons and Terri is son and daughter, rather, and Terri, Steve's widow. So it still feels weird saying that word. Tell us, first of all, welcome. Tell us a little bit about Crikey. It's the Irwins thing.
Well, Crikey is the Irwins.
In that accent.
That's it. You got to say Crikey. Yeah. Well,
I try my best.
That was very good. That was good. Well, see, Crikey, it's the Irwins. It's exactly how it sounds. It's so much fun, and it's really following how we're continuing Dad's legacy. So it's all about our work at Australia Zoo, the most hands-on zoological facility in the world. So we're in with all of our wildlife. It also covers our conservation projects all over the world. So we'll take you all over the place following our crazy adventures.
I'm right in thinking that Steve himself was introduced to the wonderful world of nature by his father, so I suppose it's quite natural that it should be passed down the line.
Oh, absolutely. I'm so honoured to be following in his footsteps, definitely learning as much as I can about working with all the animals at the zoo and getting to have the best family along the way. We have so much fun. We absolutely love
that
it.
I do not doubt.
Yeah.
And it was fascinating, actually. I didn't know anything about you, Terri, and how you met Steve until today, and this fantastic story of love at first sight. Can you tell us a bit about that? It's
Absolutely. So I was really lucky because I went into Australia Zoo when it was tiny.
You're from Oregon.
I'm from Oregon.
Yeah.
Yep. And I was just on holidays, and I went into this tiny little roadside park, and it opened up to beautiful gardens, and it was amazing. And there was this guy doing a crocodile show, and he's feeding the crocodile, and he's talking about them in ways I'd never really thought of. He said crocodiles are beautiful mothers and they're very affectionate to each other. And I thought, who the heck is this guy? And went on and saw another crocodile demonstration that he was doing. And then we got to talking, and turned out it was Steve. And I've got a photograph that was taken that day, literally the first moment I ever met him, which is really special. But I thought he was really amazing.
Because he was reframing animals in a less negative way. Because one of my things was spiders. I had a problem with spiders.
Yes.
I ended up doing therapy. I did a therapy course for spiders, and you end up seeing them in a different way, no longer as fearful, but as beautiful. And it's just, if you keep reading the papers, spiders are bad, sharks are bad, spiders are bad, sharks are bad, spiders are bad, and they're not.
No, and I always like when people say the river is infested with crocodiles, but you never say the field is infested with butterflies, So I think it's time to start just being realistic. So we got to talking, and I liked him, but I didn't know how to say, so are you available? So he kind of read my mind, and he said, do you want to meet my girlfriend, Sue? And I was devastated, but I said, oh, I'd love to. She sounds wonderful. And so he goes, hey, Suey, and here comes his little dog, Suey. And I was like, sweet, he's single. So he was pretty clever, and we hit it off immediately.
How long till he proposed?
He came to visit me in Oregon, and when I came back to see him in Australia, he said, do you want to get married? And I thought of all the reasons I couldn't and said yes. And then he said, why don't you live here and we can put a wedding together? And I said, oh, I won't live with you till we're married. And he said, how soon can you get a wedding together? So we'd spent less than 6 weeks together by the time we were married. And that was in June of '92. It was
That's
very special.
Amazing.
Yeah, secret to success, apparently, because it lasted the long haul, and it was the adventure of a lifetime.
What's your earliest memory, Bindi, of your father?
Earliest memory? That's a really good question, because we always did everything together as a family, so it always involved wildlife. I think one of my very earliest memories was when we were catching alligators in Florida, and Dad would catch these giant alligators and get them into the boat and then measure them and see how they were doing to make sure the population was healthy. So I can remember vividly I was obsessed with the alligator's feet and legs, and exactly like what you say, people can be afraid of things like crocodiles or sharks or spiders when they don't know enough about them. For me, from an early age, I experienced crocodiles so up close and personally that I discovered that their feet and legs are actually really soft and squishy, and they have squishy little tummies, and I would sit there for like 20 minutes to half an hour just playing with their feet and feeling their soft nose.
How old would you have been?
Oh, tiny, like a few years old. Yeah, it was amazing, but it's totally true. It's what you grow up with, and if you take that knowledge, it removes the fear of all these amazing animals.
But not everyone's going to understand. And there was a famous episode that you probably won't remember, Robert, but I'm sure you've been told about, where you were sort of dangled near crocodiles, except you weren't being dangled near crocodiles.
I'm still here. I'm alive. I survived.
Is it tiresome coming up against the armchair critics?
Yeah. I think sometimes, I mean, there are always going to be people that are sometimes critical of what you're doing. But for me and Bindi, we've literally, this has always been our life. Living at the zoo, growing up around all these animals has been such an amazing childhood. I feel so lucky to have the family that I do, and they really instilled this passion. Mum and Dad are the most enthusiastic conservationists, and together as a family now, we're so dedicated to this work, and we love it.
Do you have particular goals for particular species, your pet projects?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's certainly a few things that we're particularly passionate about, and something that I absolutely really, really am passionate about is apex predators. So crocodiles, tigers, those really revered animals that are often feared the most. That's a big goal of mine, is to really show people the other side of these creatures.
Where are you on? This is a very complicated and divisive issue. I know Kevin, his hackles will rise. The so-called trophy hunters that go out, particularly in Africa, and I hear two different stories. One is they're just idiots with money who want to claim trophies, and the other is actually populations of things like lions need controlling. If these people want to pay top dollar, it helps fund the guides that help protect the other species. It's a good thing. What is the truth as far as you're concerned, Terri?
It is interesting that there's any consideration that killing things is going to help them. That's a fascinating philosophy. In that case, we should go out and start clobbering all of our endangered species so they will flourish. Actually, lion populations that you brought up are not only declining horrifically, but we're seeing lions that are getting not only feline diseases, but also canine diseases, which is something the populations have never endured before. And it's because they're weakened and vulnerable. We're now seeing giraffes' numbers lowering, and that's in part to safari hunting. But there's a lot of things that we've done as humankind which we don't do anymore. And it wasn't that it used to be the right thing. It never was the right thing. And, when we used to have to hunt and gather to survive, it was a different world. But to kill something, to take a photo with it, is not something we really need to do to survive.
Now, this leads into a discussion that Kevin and I had yesterday about reality television programs. In fact, the one and only time I've been to your beautiful country, Australia, was for a reality TV show, the I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of There. And there's a growing unhappiness, I think, about seeing animals used in reality television. I mean, I'm pretty okay with treading on cockroaches. I hold my hand up to that. Kevin was very uncomfortable about pigs being brought in to be slaughtered by people who didn't know what they were doing. Your thoughts?
Yeah, well, for us as a family, I think that we really believe that we need to take care of our animals. And Dad always used to say, this is the golden rule that I use in my everyday life. Dad always said to me, you should treat animals the way you would wish to be treated.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that holds up, and I think that's something that you need to compare everything to. That's why at Australia Zoo we're so lucky, because our animals live in a resort. They have miles and miles to roam. They get amazing food, totally. And they're so happy that's how we should treat every animal, is how we would wish to be treated. And it applies to each other as well.
The trouble is, there is a part of me which would quite like to tie Kevin to a tree.
Yeah, you would. And then slaughter.
That's a story for another day.
In a loving way, I'm sure.
Just to conclude, dear listener, the Irwin tribe arrive in, as you would imagine, beautiful khaki outfits. I have to say, they're three of the most healthy-looking specimens of humanity I've ever come across.
Worrying, I'll tell you.
A lot healthier than old man Kevin down there.
Well,
and I can tell you,
so healthy.
I can tell you can see for yourselves on the 28th of October at 8 o'clock on Animal Planet, when the first episode of Crikey, It's the Irwins goes to...
That was good. You've got that down pat.
You flatter me.